the explanation might be, the fact is that from my perspective, one cannot separate who we are as Jews from how we connect to Israel. For too many, especially perhaps younger people, understandably, Israel has become nothing more or less than a controversial daily news item, the subject of a Time magazine cover story this week, which is shameful. If you haven't seen it, please read it. The subject of constant debate on campuses over divestment and boycotts and the like. But ladies and gentlemen, at this time of year, let's step back for a moment. Winston Churchill, the great man of the 20th century, understood what Israel is about. Churchill said, "The coming into being of a Jewish state should be seen not through the perspective of a generation or a century, but through the perspective of 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 3,000 years." Churchill understood the historical meaning of the reestablishment of Jewish sovereignty in the cradle of our birth. Harry Truman understood it. Said Harry Truman, "I am Cyrus," referring to the Persian leader who let the Jews return from exile. And what was Harry Truman's favorite psalm, he said? Psalm 137, which most of us perhaps learned not in Hebrew school initially, but on the radio. "By the rivers of Babylon, where we sat down, yea, we wept when we remembered Zion," first popularized in a song, and only later perhaps discovered by many of us to have been drawn from our own tradition. Churchill understood the meaning of the reemergence of the Jewish state. Truman understood the meaning of the reemergence of the Jewish state. Do we understand the meaning of the reemergence of the Jewish state? Or has it become, for too many of us, a kind of irritation or annoyance in having to defend a state which sometimes to some seems indefensible, or that might sometimes cause embarrassment to those who would rather avoid controversy and conflict with friends and others? My friends, the Time magazine cover story to which I referred asks, does Israel really want peace? The audacity of such a question. Is there any nation on the face of the earth that yearns for peace more than the nation of Israel? Is there any nation on earth that for its entire existence from its first day has never known a single true, genuine day of peace? Let Time magazine's editors tell the parents and grandparents of 18-year-old boys and girls who in the fourth generation now serve their country and in a reversal of what should be are buried by their parents and grandparents in defense of their country. Let Time magazine tell the residents of Sderot in the southern part of Israel that yes, what they really want is to continue to live with the firing of thousands of missiles and mortars from Gaza, because this is why the Jewish people returned to Israel. Let Time magazine tell the people of the north, today facing as many as 60,000 missiles courtesy of Iran and Syria, now situated in Lebanon, that this is what they have sought in life. The Holocaust survivors who came to Israel, the survivors of the Arab world's expulsion of the Jews, the refugees from communist oppression and anti-Semitism. This is why they came to Israel, in order to rejoice under the cloud of Hamas and Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad. And yes, Israel is practically exuberant. According to Time magazine, I'm sure that Iran is ever closer to achieving nuclear weapons capacity. Because after all, Time magazine asks, do Israelis really want peace? The implication, of course, is that Israelis are absolutely, totally satisfied with the status quo, and that is absurd. That is malicious. And that kind of accusation should not be left unaddressed. Israel wants peace. When Anwar Sadat of blessed memory came along and offered genuine peace, how long did it take Israel to achieve peace? When King Hussein came out of the closet and was prepared for de jure peace with Israel, how long did it take for a peace to be signed between Amman and Jerusalem? And when there are credible Palestinian leaders who are prepared to put the construction of their society ahead of the destruction of Israel, not only will peace be possible, peace will become inevitable. When Palestinian textbooks recognize that the Jewish people as well are an indigenous people with a right to live, not by sufferance, but by law and international recognition, then there will be peace. Israel has already made the enormous leap in recognizing there is an indigenous Palestinian people with a right to its own self-determination and its own statehood. It has accepted it. Even Likud, now under the leadership of Prime Minister Netanyahu, has made that ideological and strategic jump. Will the Palestinians? We'll soon have the answer. Earlier this month, peace talks were launched. The next round begin in just a few days in Egypt. We'll soon have the answers. I pray that this time the Palestinians will say yes to peace. And I assure you, if they do, the Israeli response will be an embrace. But meanwhile, there's more to Israel. There's more to Israel, and we should not allow our discussion of Israel to be reduced to a conflict. There's the Israel that produces Nobel Prize winners. There's the Israel that has just joined the elite group of 30 industrialized nations in the OECD. There's the Israel that has become a high-tech wizard. There's the Israel that produces medical research that touches the lives of every single person in this tent. There's the Israel in which Michael Harris and Morgan Listner, sitting right there, study medicine on a daily basis and understand what Israel is seeking to do, not just for Israel and the Jewish people, but for all humanity. There is that Israel, the Israel that went to Haiti, that Israel that went to Asia during the tsunami, the Israel that wants to be an Or L'Goyim, that wants to get beyond the conflict in the Time magazine covers and the talk of divestment and the attempt to isolate it at the United Nations. And we have to be that voice that gives expression. And we have to be the voice that continues to ensure that this nation, still the world's most powerful, remains by the side of Israel. I have said here before, don't take the relationship for granted, though too many of us do. And a year ago, you saw why. The moment there were questions in the Arab world about America's commitment to Israel, you saw not progress, you saw paralysis. In fact, you saw regression. The moment the Arab world believed that in Washington there was a new government less committed to Israel's security, more willing to challenge Israel on the big questions, the more the Arab world dug in its heels and refused to compromise. Fortunately, in recent months, the perception has changed. But, ladies and gentlemen, let it be a sneak preview and a sobering reminder that you and we, all of us, have an obligation to keep America on the side of Israel, on the side of security, on the side of justice, and on the side of peace. And that brings me to my final point. We Jews, as the rabbi reminds us on a regular basis, are not just about ourselves, though if we're not for ourselves, who will be? We're about something larger and bigger. We're about seeking to repair the world. Tikkun Olam has become this kind of cliched phrase. We repeat it ad nauseum, but we tend to talk more than walk. The question is, can we return to the walk? It's not by accident that many of the great advances in human civilization, conceptual advances, involve Jews. It's not by accident that the very first notions of democracy and monotheism arose, yes, from Athenian democracy, but also from ancient Israel. It's not by accident that the notion of Shabbat, the respect for a day of rest, the demarcation between the daily and the sacred, emerged from the Jewish people. It's not by accident that compassion for the stranger, pursuit of justice, concern for the orphan and the widow emerged from us and our tradition. These are our guideposts. Our work is incomplete. It's not by accident that in the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa, you had names like Helen Suzman and Helen Lieberman and Harry Schwartz and so many others. They were guided by the moral conscience that we have inherited. It's not by accident that Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel and Schwerner and Goodman were part of the civil rights